Greetings viewers, Eric the Car Guy here, back again with what I hope will be another repair video for you. Why do I say I hope? Because I'm not sure what's going to fix it yet, but behind me there is a 1998 Mazda 626 with a problem with its wipers. And this is a common problem this time of year. It's cold outside and sometimes your windshield gets iced up overnight. And maybe the night before you might have left the wipers on, or you might turn your wipers on while there's still ice to the windshield and stuff happens. In fact, I think that may be what has caused the problem that we're dealing with here on this Mazda today. But rather than taking up too much of your time with this intro, why don't we go over to the vehicle and see what we're dealing with on this 1998 Mazda 626. So here's what happens just when you turn on the car without even the wipers on. And as long as this vehicle is running, this is what happens. It never stops. Hey, I fixed it. Well, not quite. I can move them around a little bit to some degree, and they do work a little bit. Because they actually function to some degree, I would wager that we're dealing with a mechanical issue and not necessarily an electrical issue here. Okay, here's the wiper motor, and here's the wiper arms, and underneath this plastic cover is the connection between the two. I have found in the past sometimes issues with the mechanism that connects the wiper motor with these wiper blades, and there's what I call a transmission that goes between the wiper motor and the wiper arms that allows them to move. And I suspect the reason why it's running all the time is because inside this motor there is what's called a park switch. Oftentimes that's where they put it. So when your wipers don't go all the way down, that may have something to do with the switch inside the motor here. Anyway, inside this motor is that switch. So the fact that these are not moving correctly leads me to believe that that park switch is never activated, so you're never able to actually turn anything off. I don't think I need to remove both wiper arms, but I do need to remove this one. This varies by vehicle and how these are attached, but usually there's, like in this case, there's a plastic cover, and then underneath that cover there's a fastener. In this case, I think it's a 14 millimeter. Yep, 14 millimeter. Here's a problem you may encounter, like if you have one wiper arm that's not moving correctly, it could be that this loosened up on you. These are splined to these studs that stick up through here so that they can pivot back and forth. I have seen on occasion where the nut will come loose and one wiper arm will still move and the other won't. If that's the case, I would just try and tighten this down. That may be all you need to do. To remove them, I'll come in with my hand here and push down on this pivot to try and knock it loose from its mount. And that usually does the trick. And hopefully you can see that there. There's some tiny splines down inside that goes to, and then there's also some splines here on this pivot here that also hold it into place. Now, more plastic stuff to remove. There's a little plastic cover here. There may be all kinds of things holding stuff in place. This one's got just a screw underneath it. And then there may also be some plastic clips. In fact, underneath this rubber seal, there are plastic clips that hold the front of this plastic in place. Here's a closer look at those plastic clips. You can often pinch them, squeeze them. If you just try to pull up on this, you'll probably damage the rubber. So I usually try to find some way to squeeze or pinch the clips underneath so I can just lift this up without issue. There's a couple of them here. And here's obviously the electrical connection to the motor, which that doesn't really need to be connected anymore. But I'm going to find some way to deal with these clips. I'm going to use these angled pliers to get down in there. If you catch them just right, they should come up without issue. That one wasn't even attached through the metal. Some, it looks like, are not attached all the way through the metal, which is beneficial. And there may also be additional clips. I'm not at the right angle for that. Oh, there we go. You know what? I'm just going to take this other wiper arm off. Now keep your wiper arms in order because they're often different lengths. Now hopefully I can remove this plastic cover and we can get a look at what's going on underneath. Sometimes these arms that actually move, the wiper arms themselves, will come off of their mounts. They're just held on often by little plastic clips. It doesn't look like that's the case here. This thing seems firmly attached. Now, sometimes the little ends, little plastic ends of these will break off, causing the problem. Given that the motor continues to run and that they stick in one place, I'm thinking our problem is actually inside this wiper motor. I believe I can confirm that relatively easily. If this arm were not attached, then I would say, okay, we got a problem there, or maybe a problem up inside here. That seems a little loose. I don't think that's what's causing the issue though. There's also another arm that you can barely see up under here. So there's two of them that are attached. And they're what gives our wipers the up and down motion. But I have already unplugged this motor. I'm gonna remove it. And it looks like just a few screws hold this cover on. I'm gonna get a look inside and see if there's something broken down inside the motor. First thing we're gonna need to do is we're gonna need to pry this arm off of here, and I'll see if I can get you down in there to see how I'm gonna do that. You can see where this is attached. There's that little plastic end there. Now, to get down in there, I'm just gonna take a pry bar. And you have to be careful when you do this because you don't wanna break those plastic ends. I got really lucky. So nothing was broken. There's like a ball and socket thing here that I just pried off. This is kind of common to many vehicles. They may do it slightly differently from manufacturer to manufacturer, but as far as wiper stuff, it seems to be fairly universal. Anyway, that's the way it is on this Mazda. Now let's get the fasteners off for the motor. Looks like there's 4 fasteners holding this guy on. One under here, and then 2 up at the top. And there it is. I think I already know what's coming because I've been here before. I've seen this issue show up in the past. It was just 4 screws holding this cover on. And I open it up. And there's your problem right there. It's just a broken tooth right here. A couple more here. That's the issue. And guess what this guy is? This is that park switch that I talked about. So this sends a signal, says that, okay, the wipers are at rest, in the rest position, and it's on this tooth of this gear. So the fact that this gear is not spinning, this park switch never gets activated, the wipers run continuously at that point. Here's one of them there teeth, right there. Now some of you may be saying, hey Eric, just get some new plastic teeth and put it back together, save yourself some money. These are really hard to find. Wiper motors are not. And here's some more teeth, more bustedness. There's only little plastic things down inside the wiper motor. So if it's a cold winter day, something like that, resist the temptation to clear your windshield with your wipers. Here's our new motor. Here's the old motor. It looks like we've got some stuff to swap over. Like this little rubber deal here. Seal. Still got some grease on it. As far as what to lubricate this with, it almost looks like axle grease, but I worry about axle grease and rubber parts because those two don't often mix. I'm gonna go grab some silicone spray to make these little rubber insulators easier to install. They just sort of roll out, as you saw. Like I said, silicone spray is your friend with installing rubber stuff. Popped right in. Looks like that's all we need to get from one to the other. This motor comes with a core, which means I need to return it to get credit that they already charged me for. I opened it up, but try not to damage anything or try to make it look like it was never opened up, they might refuse the core. So make sure you put it all back together and package it up nice so that your parts people actually give you your money back. Let's install that new motor. Hardest part, probably going to be fishing this in through that hole. Yeah, it was not difficult at all. Now some wiper motors might be a little more difficult to get to than this one was. So you are going to have to check with perhaps the service manual for your vehicle to find out if there are other things that need to be considered when removing and installing the wiper motor. I'm going to restore the electrical connection and reconnect the transmission from behind there. Thinking I should be able to just take this, pop it back together. Yeah. This seems secure. Make sure it is secure, because sometimes you have to go through a lot to get this far and get all this stuff off of here. Now before I put the rest of this back together, I'm going to turn the ignition on and see if the motor is still going to run continuously. And if it is going to run, I'm hoping it comes to its park or rest position so that when I position the wiper arms that they get in the correct position so they're not all over the place when you use the wipers. Yep, went to its park position. All right. So now I know I can install the wiper blades and they will work properly. Putting it back together is pretty much the same as taking it apart. I don't like this. In a perfect world, what I'd end up doing is I'd end up replacing this assembly. I think there's bushings down inside here that have worn, but it's not in the budget today, and I believe this will address the immediate problem of inoperative wipers. Sometimes it's just, you pick your battles. And this was the wiper for this side. Probably a good idea to inspect and replace the wiper blades at this point, but these are actually relatively new on this vehicle, so I'm going to leave them be. And when you position these, try to think about them being down far enough so that they're not obstructing your vision. You may need to reposition them, so be prepared for that. But once you've got them loose off their mounts, it's fairly easy to reposition them if you need to. You want to get these snug, but you don't want to go too tight that you end up breaking something. All right, let's see if I fixed it. And that's off. Missed. Also works. Looks like they're down in a good position. I'm going to put those caps on and call this done. Well, I'm going to call that a win. The wipers are now functioning and working as they should. A couple of other things to watch out for that I mentioned in the video are if one wiper is moving and the other is not, check those connections, those nuts that hold the wiper arm to the transmission assembly. Perhaps that's come loose. And of course, make sure the wipers are off when you go to tighten that down, and make sure it's in the correct position, because if it's not, it won't clear the windshield properly and may come into contact with things it's not supposed to come into contact with. Other mechanical issues that could come up could be due to that those little plastic cups that go onto those ball joints of the different components up under there. I've seen that. I've seen those break many times. If that's the case, you may have to replace those arms. And many times you can't get those plastic parts separately, but those little metal rods are not often expensive, so they're not going to set you back too much. Above all else, if you know it's going to be cold outside and you know that your windshield wipers may be frozen to the windshield, just be aware of that before you turn them on, and make sure that they're free first, because if not, it can cause these issues. That's what I suspect happened here. Or if maybe you left them on the night before, what have you. On some wiper arms, you can actually position them so they're straight up in the air and not in contact with the windshield at all. If you know it's going to be freezing rain or snow that's going to happen the night before, you can sort of prepare for that a little bit. That way you can clear your windshield off, put your windshield wipers down, and not have to worry about it and move on your merry old way. Yes, I did have some concerns about those studs that did have some movement to them. If it was in the budget for this vehicle, I probably would be replacing that as well. As long as it works, that's all we're really concerned about here with this one. But I hope that information helps you should you have a similar issue with your vehicle. If you have other issues that were not covered in this video, I would ask that you head over to EricTheCarGuy.com. There's a welcome video there to tell you about stuff that we have at EricTheCarGuy.com to help you with your automotive issues should you have them. If you wish to connect with me socially, I can be found on Google+, Facebook, Twitter, and now Instagram. And I close each of my videos with be safe, have fun, stay dirty. I will see you next time. Take care.